Hey everyone, Andre here, along with Joey and Tom, to discuss the latest rumor of the day, or perhaps I should say news more accurately, being the fact that the FCC apparently has received an application from Nintendo for what appears to be an upcoming Nintendo Switch controller. We know this based on its actual filing, or the name used for it, which is HAC-043, which means HAC means it is a Switch product, or seems to at least, and that does follow HAC-042, which is the wireless Super Nintendo controller that came as part of the whole Nintendo Switch Online thing when Super Nintendo hit the service. So this does seem like it's a new controller, possibly for Virtual Console, and that's what I wanted to talk about, because there are rumblings, there have been rumblings, separate from this, that Nintendo 64 could be hitting the Nintendo Switch Online service at some point, specifically from Nate the Hate, who had a whole video dedicated to this, where they mentioned they had heard that apparently N64 is hitting the service, and they speculated about what that could mean. So since I have also heard similar things, I thought it'd be fun for us to discuss all of this, whether we think 64 might actually hit the service, if it does what we want from it, including our top 15 games, five each from all of us, so they should hopefully be 5 unique games from each of us, we'll see. And we'll also discuss this supposed controller too, and whether we think it's related or not. So there's a lot to go over here. Let's hop in, and let's start off with this, I guess the controller itself. Do you think that this is related to Nintendo Switch Online, or could it be something else? Could it be something more off the wall, you know, from like a Ring Fit type accessory? Joey, what do you think of this?
I think it very well could be. It makes more sense than having a Game Boy controller, because those have also been rumors about Switch Online getting Game Boy games. So all I'm thinking is I'm wondering how a Nintendo 64 type controller would work, and especially if it works like the NES.
Like this.
Well, yes, Andre, but like, how do you fit that on a Switch?
Yeah, I don't think you would. I don't think you could. I mean, you could. It would be horrible and amazing at the same time.
Exactly. The only way they can make that deal sweeter is by making them actually function with your actual Nintendo 64. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, Nintendo 64 controllers are pretty difficult to come by. At least genuine ones that are like from Nintendo, not like the generic brand type deal.
There are a lot of generic controllers that look oddly similar, like unusually similar to the original brands. Like they fool me even at first glance. Like, are those official ones? But no, never are. Tom, what do you make of all this?
Well, those controllers even have a little ring for the Nintendo logo without Nintendo text in the middle.
It's not okay.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking, could the controller be some sort of super pro, like an elite level controller? It's like, no, that's not Nintendo's thing. And yeah, Joey said with Game Boy, it's not that. So maybe with the N64, if that is going to happen, you have kind of like 6 buttons all beside each other. That might be needed to make the games playable. Otherwise, we've seen on different systems when they're ported, it's not the same experience. So that could be very well what's going to happen. I don't think it's going to be like a 3-prong thing where you have the Switch resting with the bottom prong coming in the middle. It would make sense considering they have released other controllers in the past. So I think that's the biggest possibility over any type of new Ring Fit type controller or anything.
Right. I kind of agree for a few reasons. One, we are coming up on Nintendo Switch Online's 3rd anniversary, being the 18th. That's only a few days away, which means a lot of people are going to be renewing their service in the near future. Now, on the other hand, to immediately undermine myself, I don't know if it matters that much because, as I've said before during our Game Boy discussion, which also has been a rumor going around, it seems like there's a lot of rumors for Nintendo Switch Online at the moment, that people are kind of stuck with Nintendo Switch Online. Like, whether you want it or not, you have to get it if you want to play games online. And the games that they have currently on the service are really more just a bonus. I can't imagine there are many people subscribing to the service just for NES or Super NES games. Not that they necessarily wouldn't, but anyone who would probably already has it because they need it for the online. Which is why, assuming both 64 and Game Boy, I hopefully come to the service, I don't think it's really, while it does add value, I don't think it's going to increase Nintendo's market share in terms of subscriber base much. So it may not necessarily be tied. They don't need to do it for that reason to convince people to resubscribe. But it might be a nice thing to throw out there on its anniversary or near it, being like, look, we appreciate you. Here's even more stuff coming to the platform. Particularly as it seems like they've kind of hit they've kind of like petered out a little bit in terms of releases for the other platforms. You can occasionally get a really cool game or not. We had like some interesting ones in the last group of Super NES games, but I think it's time for, at least another new platform. Anyways, with that said, I think a 64 controller makes a lot of sense. A Game Boy One wouldn't make sense, particularly as you could just use an NES controller for a Game Boy. They're the same controls. And N64 had a very unusual layout to the point that no other modern controller can really replicate this. They can, in a sense, by putting the C buttons on the right analog stick, but that never works quite as well as having actual buttons. And you kind of do need, I feel like these for the proper experience. And also, I say that, you also need, the 3 prongs. This is key, this is all part of the classic experience. So yeah, I really do think this all makes a lot of sense, particularly as I said earlier, we heard rumblings of 64 coming to the platform. A controller going with that makes sense, and that, personally, excites me a lot, because I'm a big fan of the 64. It's the fun machine, baby. That's how they branded it. It had a lot of fantastic multiplayer games, and it'd be great to be able to relive and re-experience those on Switch, particularly because you could find, I was gonna say, you could finally have Mario Party online, but they're already doing that in Superstars, or Super Mario Party Superstars, whatever it's called. But there's a ton of classic games that would be fun to play with your friends online, like you can with NES or Super NES. My main wondering, though, is let's assume both Game Boy and 64 rumors are true. That seems like a lot. They would be adding a lot, assuming they come at around the same time. Do you think it's possible this could be part of an upgrade program, like a second tier of Switch Online, where you pay more for additional content? And would you, if that were the case? Or part of a price increase for this whole thing? Maybe that's it. Maybe Nintendo's gonna raise the price on this whole thing, yeah, it sucks, but hey, you get more, so...
Well, if they were to do that, the way I think of it is, I don't think there would be a price increase, because, we had the NES games in 2018, the SNES games in 2019, we didn't get anything in 2020. So maybe this would be a way for them to kind of make up for not having anything in 2020, and of course, probably the big reason why they didn't have anything in 2020 is because you know what. So that's probably the reason why there was nothing there that time. So maybe this is kind of their way of saying, hey, we're not only going to give you Game Boy games, we're also going to give you Nintendo 64 games. As for Game Boy Advance games, you're going to have to wait another year for that. So sorry, Metroid fans.
Yeah. Poor Metroid fans.
Well, come on, there's Metroid 2. You could play that again, Joey. Come on.
Oh, yes, I love Metroid 2 so much. I play 30 minutes of it and give up every time, without fail.
If you combine all those 30-minute sessions, you can eventually get to the end.
Eventually. Yeah.
That sounds like a speedrun challenge to me, really. Come on.
Oh, God, please don't.
Tom, would you pay more for Game Boy and 64, or do you think Nintendo might do anything along those lines?
It's a compelling argument, isn't it? If you threw in a bunch of those games, if you had some big game in there you thought would never come out again, that would be... I'd be inclined to pay a bit more to have it, especially because I know I still have N64 games, but to have them online, that'd be great. And it could also be, though, if the chance that if Nintendo considered this like a weaker holiday season, just have people buy more Switches, with Breath of the Wild 2 being next year, even though there is Metroid Dread coming out this year. That's a huge one, but it's not quite the same allure necessarily as a full 3D game.
I mean, it's better than a full 3D.
I know it's better, Joy, but to some who see like God of War and stuff, it's a bit different.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it's interesting to think about it that way. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you there, Tom. I really don't think they're going to increase the price of Switch Online. It is just kind of like saying, hey, it's kind of a weaker holiday season by Metroid Dread, but also check out these cool games on the Nintendo 64 and or Game Boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'd be willing to. I myself would be willing to pay a little bit more, whether it's through a price increase. I mean, I'd have to in that case for the online. But if it is a second tier, I'd pay for that as well, just because I am actually a big fan of both Game Boy and 64. But even if it's only one or the other, I probably would pay extra for it. For the reasons you guys already mentioned. Plus, even though my 64 collection is ridiculous, I have a ton of games for it. Probably all the good ones. But it'd be nice to have them all in one place, again, with the online. So, I probably would be willing to do would be willing to invest in that, at least for a period of time. But one other point to the idea of them possibly raising the price of this whole thing, which I agree they probably wouldn't without a second tier maybe, but then again they might, just given the fact that inflation has taken hold, and Nintendo is also like having to pay more for these chips now due to the shortage, presumably I imagine. And the fact that the dollar is just worth less in general because of how inflation works, given the past year, that they may be looking at a way of increasing that value now, or value and price, in order to get more out of their consumers. But who knows? We'll see. I don't know whether they're going to do that or not. But let's get back to happier news and what else this.
I want to go real quick on subscriptions.
Sure.
More big companies have been going to subscription models. And I do think, though, it is possible they would keep it as one tier just to keep it simple. I think you get 2 tiers. Starts getting confusing. Starts getting a bit like Xbox, like it gets confusing when you have too many. I think one more expensive tier would be more likely.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, we've even seen even Netflix, aside from their multiple streams tiers, I think they only have one. Like, you have Netflix or you don't, and then you can pay for more streams if you want. There's no siloed content separate from that, and I think having that simplicity, particularly for Nintendo, who is generally pretty good about that, makes a lot of sense. So if there is a price increase, it probably would be part of the existing subscription rather than a second tier. I think the thing that possibly excites me too, it shouldn't, because it probably isn't going to happen, but I do hope for the possibility of what else this could mean for the service, because we've seen it from Nintendo. They've been going back into their back catalog and giving us these lesser experiences that either never came out or were overlooked. I'm thinking specifically of things like Star Fox 2 finally coming out on Super Nintendo Classic and the Super NES NSO app. Then there was another game too. I forget what that they did something with. I don't remember, but they've shown that they are open to that, and there are some 64 games that either never released here or actually, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. They came out only in Japan, such as
Some of this. Yeah.
Sorry?
Sin and Punishment, you got it.
Yeah, Sin and Punishment, yeah. Which actually did come to the Wii eventually on the Virtual Console. So that's already ready to go. Give us the English version of that. And then I think they had the whole disc drive with 10 exclusives, half of which were basically Mario Artist. But there's some games on there that would be neat to see, like the F-Zero expansion kit, F-Zero X expansion kit where we can make our own tracks. SimCity 64, which had features that apparently even some newer games of the series since doesn't. Like being able to check out your city at ground level, like Street View almost, as a character. Dosha and the Giant, which eventually would re-release on the GameCube in Europe, but never in the US. So there's some things that they could do here that would make out even more value if they actually went back and gave us these options.
I agree. Yeah, I haven't heard of most of these games except Sin and Punishment. So.
Yeah, Sin and Punishment is probably the more common one of those.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into our personal top 15 games we want to see. So we have 5 each. We're going to avoid duplicates. And Joey, let's go and start off with you. By and large, I don't think there's any real order to this, but I think Joey had some order for his, so whatever. All right, Joey, give us one of your 5 that you want to see come to the platform, if it comes.
If it comes, right? I want to see Diddy Kong Racing come to the Switch Online service because it's never been re-released, really. Yep. I don't remember if was it ever on the Wii Virtual Console?
No, but I don't think it was, but it did come to the Nintendo DS. It was technically remade for the DS.
I see, that's right. Yeah, so that's something that definitely needs another chance. And I played it a bit here and there. I never really grew up with a Nintendo 64. I just played it at friends' houses and kiosk demo stations. But yeah, I remember Diddy Kong Racing being a fun one.
Oh, that is a classic. One of my favorite racing games of all time. I had on my list, so darn you, Joey.
Yeah.
And having online for that game too would be fantastic. It'd be so fun to play. We could have a stream with all of us playing it. And even though it did have the DS remake, a lot of people weren't a huge fan of that one. So it would be awesome to have the pure version on 64 available. And particularly as you said, Joey, it itself hasn't been. I don't think it's re-released. It's one of the games missing from the Rare's. Rare. What was it? Rare.
Rare
game
Replay.
Called?
Rare Replay.
Rare Replay. Thank you. Yeah. It wasn't on there, obviously, being a Nintendo property.
I even think Rare worked on the DS remake too.
They did,
even though they
that's
were
right.
owned by Microsoft at the time. So that's
Correct.
interesting.
it is interesting. So yeah, that's a great game. I want it back. Tom, how about you?
Well, yeah, many great Diddy Kong racing memories, and definitely one of the top games on N64. On that note, though, on top of racing, I'm gonna go with F-Zero X, and then steal Andre's idea of 64DD and bring in the track editor. I want that in too, so we'll get infinite number of new races and or new tracks and online play to F-Zero. I want to see that 60 frames per second, which it already was, but keep that going.
Yeah, one of the few games that was actually 60 frames during the early 3D era. So, that'd be so great. I love that game. Good call. All right, for my first one, quick note here. I'm focusing entirely on the fun machine side of things. In that it was all about multiplayer back in the day. I played Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time enough. Mario 64 is already on the platform anyway, so I don't care if that comes here or not. I want multiplayer, baby, especially because it is online, as we've said ad nauseum at this point. And I'm starting off with Bomberman 64. This is such a unique game by even Bomberman standards, featuring like 3DS gameplay. You can pump up bombs and make them huge and throw them around, kick them around. You can pick people up and throw them off cliffs. It's a ton of fun. I want to hear. It's my favorite Bomberman that I've played, and it'll be a total blast on the system.
Very nice. Should I go next?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I know I already spoiled my list on Discord, but I know these people in the discussion hate me for putting this on my list. But Donkey Kong 64, like, next.
That was even number 1 on your list.
His list had no order.
It was no particular
no order. Okay, all right.
No particular. It was just the first thing that came to mind.
It was numbered though, and it was number 1.
Oh, come on, whatever. But yeah, I liked Donkey Kong 64. I know it's not a very good game, but it's nostalgia. Just nostalgia all the way. Like, just give it to me for the nostalgia. Seriously.
You know what would be awesome if they actually went back and fixed some of the bugs.
It would be
just
nice.
Make it a little bit more playable.
Also, reduced the amount of collectibles a little bit.
Yeah. I wasn't a huge fan of Donkey Kong 64, particularly revisiting it, in the years since. But it's been a long time since I've gone back. So, assuming it ran at a higher resolution, which I imagine it would, I would be interested in actually revisiting that game and seeing how it holds up. And particularly because it does have some of the best versions of the original Donkey Kong arcade game and the original Jetpack game, both of which were included for free. And that'd be fun to revisit. And it had a multiplayer mode that was not great, but kind of fun. So
yeah, it came out. I remember when it came out on Wii U, and I was like, "What? No way! Did they really port this game to the Wii U?" Because I remember, one of the reasons I was looking for a Nintendo 64 because I really wanted to play Donkey Kong 64 again. And then like a few months after I got it, it came out on the Wii U, and I'm like, I didn't think that was possible because of Rare being owned by Microsoft. But Donkey Kong is more powerful than that.
I guess so. All right, Tom, what do you got for us?
Okay, yeah, with the multiplayer theme, that is right, because we kind of all expect Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time to be there. I mean, they're great classics that I'll remember forever. I'm going to go with Dr. Mario 64 for its 4-player multiplayer. Very unique take on Dr. Mario that you don't really see, and I think just for that alone and the online service, it'd be a great pick. It's Dr. Mario. They don't mess with the formula much, but might as well just bring it out there.
I think it's the only 4-player Dr. Mario game, I believe. So yes, it needs to be here. It's only been re-released, I think, in one form, being a Japanese exclusive GameCube disc as part of 2 other puzzle games, including Tetris and Puyo Puyo, I believe. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Tom, we've had, or at least I've witnessed, some of the most intense matches in that game, either between you and myself, or you and Skylar, I think, or Dr. Mario in general, at least. So that'd be awesome. Yeah, I want 4-player Dr. Mario here. All right, for my next one, I guess while keep on the puzzle game theme, I want the new Tetris. This still might be my overall favorite version of Tetris. 4 players, has some awesome mechanics I don't think that have ever been seen since. Maybe there's one game that brought back a couple of them, I forget. But this game basically invented modern Tetris as we know it, including like the hold piece and a few other elements I can't even remember now. But they also had the ability to form blocks out of the pieces. If you made a block, like a silver or a gold one, depending on which pieces you used, I think, you could send even more garbage to your opponents for clearing it. It was a ton of fun, had a great presentation, amazing music, and yeah, I definitely want it on the service because it's been sadly missing ever since.
Very nice. What was that, Tom?
Poor Tetrasphere.
I actually had that on my list too, so yes, I will take Tetrasphere as well. Only 2 players, but also a fantastic game with great music.
Yeah.
All right, cool. My next game is Star Wars Rogue Squadron. Like I think that's only been re-released on Steam, which is odd, but I know they have a HD version somewhere. But even then, you could just give me the Nintendo 64 version of this game, slap it on the Switch, and call it a day there. Like, it would be nice if it got the 60 frames per second of Star Wars. Was it Pod Racer? Was that always 60 FPS, or did they make it 60 FPS for the new
There was
version?
no way it was 60 FPS on 64. Yeah,
I mean, I was surprised some games were 60 FPS on 64.
I think F-Zero was like the exception, but every ship was like 5 polygons.
Yeah,
so
that's
That's
made great sacrifices for that.
of course, and Smash Bros, of course, too. But even then, that was also, yeah. Just put Rogue Squadron on the Switch. So get the first one on there, baby.
I agree. Also, shout out. It's not on my list. I just want to give a shout out to Battle for Naboo. That's a game I would love to revisit if it somehow made this list, the sequel to that game. So,
Of course. Yeah.
anyways, it's not officially on my list. Tom, what do you have?
Well, I'll shout out Shadows of the Empire, but that is not
Yes!
on my list too. That was a great game I rented, but I didn't own, so I loved it.
I have it. Next time you're here, we can play it.
I'm debating with my list now because I'm thinking about how many times these games have been re-released elsewhere. So I'm going to say 1080 Snowboarding.
Ooh.
As we talked to Giles Goddard recently, and of course his Carve Snowboarding. 1080 Snowboarding. It was a great experience on N64. I think it's only 2 players, I believe. It's been a while. Hold on, let me check the box here. Yeah,
Oh,
2
wow.
players. So I think it would still be a great experience on Switch Online, and I liked it better than Avalanche that came out in the GameCube later.
Yeah, I think it had a stronger. Yeah, I think Avalanche had a few issues from what I recall that weren't quite as strong. It just wasn't quite as strong as 1080 overall. I did play a ton of 1080 back in the day, so I would love the chance to revisit it. So, especially online, Tom, as we keep referring to.
Yeah, get the gold, man. That's all my advice is.
Well, speaking of Golden Man, I am going with Golden Eye, baby. This game, this could be its chance to finally be re-released for the first time in forever. It's been stuck in, there's apparently a full HD remake that never came out that's like basically ready to go. I hope that Nintendo pulls off some magic here, makes it happen. Like, I want that game more than almost anything else, given the fact it's been stuck on the original 64 forever, and I actually still prefer it, I think, to Perfect Dark. Plus, Perfect Dark already has a superior Xbox Live remake, so playing the 64 one would be inferior to it. So let's go back to GoldenEye. I think some of my best memories came from that game. Has an amazing single player too, but the multiplayer is really where it's at. And God, that would be fun if we could do that again, wouldn't it?
All you have to do is just play the remade version in Far Cry 5's level editor. Oh wait, they took that down. Thanks, companies. Gosh.
Lame.
That was so lame. I think that's the first time like something like that's actually made me angry, because that was really good. But anyway, talk about things less angry. I know none of you have this game on your list. Blues Brothers 2000.
No.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I'm thinking for this one, Pokemon Snap, because
The original.
The original one. That was a game I played a few times here and there when I was a kid, and I really liked it. I've been meaning to pick it up on the Wii U eShop, but I haven't got a chance to do that yet. And with the release of new Pokemon Snap, it just makes sense to want to go back and revisit the classic. There you go.
Bingo. I think it still might be the overall better game. Now I have to revisit it. We'll see. Tom, how about you? What do you have next?
What number are we at now?
I think we're on our 4th round.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go with Star Fox 64. And
of course.
Yeah.
that was like maybe the ultimate version of Star Fox in my mind, because we've remade it. They've tried to remake it several times since then. It also had great multiplayer with dogfights. I think that'd be a great addition to the online service to try it out. And just going through, it's a game that's pretty short to play. You can just play through it in one sitting, of course. And in that kind of mindset, I think it'd be great for the service. And bring it back, high resolution. I know it's been remade on 3DS and stuff, but I think the online play would be great.
Yeah, totally. Especially because the 64 version, or sorry, the 3DS version actually changed the multiplayer substantially.
Yeah.
I forget if it was for the better or worse, so it would be fun to have the original version playable online. And it had a strong single player too, like almost endlessly replayable, going for highest scores. And it's a short game too, so you can see most of it in just a couple hours.
Not as short as Star Fox Zero, but
Well, nothing is as short as Star Fox Zero.
That's true.
All right, my, I believe, fourth pick, hopefully we're actually counting right this time, is Super Smash Bros. 64, which Joey briefly mentioned.
Of course.
This is probably the most unique feeling game in the series now that we've had four others. You know, they all kind of iterate on the previous ones, of course, but I think with Melee, they kind of settled into a groove that obviously worked for the series, but the 64 one, there's just something very distinct about it, you know, both with visually and just how the gameplay feels, which is a little bit floatier, I think, than even any others in the series. A little bit slower paced, and there's just something about that just feels really good. And it would be fun to have that online. And yeah, just be able to re-experience that again. I had so much fun with it on the 64, like racing home from school every day to play more of that game. It'd be great to be able to revisit the game that started it all for the series.
Yeah, and it's the only Metroid game on the Nintendo 64.
That's why I'm surprised you're interested in this at all, Joey. There were zero proper Metroids on the platform.
Exactly,
so.
right. But I think for my final pick is a game I've actually never played before. I don't remember if it's loved or not by the fan base. Is it called Yoshi's Story?
Yoshi's Story.
Yoshi's Story, yeah. I've never played that one.
Sucks.
So it sucks? All right, let me pick a different one then.
No, go for it. It's not terrible. I'm just not a huge fan of it. But
Of course, but I'm actually surprised nobody here said Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie.
I have an answer for it.
You have an answer for it? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's better versions on Xbox, so that's why.
Right, yeah, that's kind of where I'm like, well, either way, you gotta have Banjo-Kazooie on the Switch.
It's kind of true. You're
Yeah.
right. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, but no, you bring up a good point. They already do have like the HD versions on the Xbox, so that kind of. But on one hand, they're not too much different. It's not like Perfect Dark where they literally just revamped the frame rate, and I even think they redid the models a little bit on there. It's still like the same game more than it's not. So, yeah, that's something to figure out there for the Switch. I even think they replaced some things. Like they added Xboxes in the. Did they add like Xboxes in the new versions? I think.
They added something. I forget exactly what it was. Yeah, they made a couple of tweaks, but you're right. By and large, it was the same game. Beyond adding, a smoother frame rate, especially for Banjo-Tooie and widescreen support. So not having that would be a little bit unfortunate. I'm assuming they wouldn't be adding widescreen, but at the very least, the game should run at higher resolution, so it should still look great. And I imagine a better frame rate too, and that's what Banjo-Tooie really needs. And you know what? Even though I just said Xbox has the better versions, I'd be happy to revisit them on Switch. These still feel like Nintendo IP to me. Even though they are on Xbox, they fully own it. It began life on 64. It has that Nintendo type of gameplay, intermixed with this wonderful sense of British humor, and it was something magical. I think Banjo-Kazooie. I think there's a case for it for being possibly better than Mario 64. I don't know if I'd settle on that, but there's a case to be made for it, and it would be amazing to have it once again on Nintendo platforms.
I have an answer for
regardless
that.
of whether there's a better version.
It is better. I have an answer for that.
Oh.
It is better. There you go. You heard it here first.
Oh my god. All right, Joey confirmed it. All right, Tom, what's your final pick?
Okay.
Real quick, while Tom's figuring
No, I got it.
All right.
I'm gonna go with Mario Kart 64. That was the first game I bought for Nintendo 64 because I knew it would have the most replay value. And even though it's kind of hasn't aged the best, some things like Choco Mountain and stuff, I love the music in there. Just to revisit it a bit, even if things like having to brake and get that little whistle to appear might be a bit weird, I think it'd be good for newer players to kind of experience what Mario Kart was like at that point in time.
Yeah, they can be like, what? People thought this was fun originally?
No.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be good just for that historical perspective. I don't think it's aged particularly well, but it probably still has one of the best battle modes in the series, with classics like Block Fort.
Yeah, Block Fort.
Or Skyscraper, even Big Donut, and or Double Decker, or Double Deck, whatever it was.
Double Dash,
and,
what?
Mario Kart and doubles go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yes.
But also it had the bomb option too, where if you got taken out, you turn into a bomb and you can just go blow up other people, and that was amazing. So yeah, I bring it back for battle mode alone. So good pick. All right, my final one. God, this words. I mean, you can ask me any day, and I have a different list for you. But since I'm sticking with the multiplayer theme, I'm so tempted to go with Majora's Mask because more people should play the original game. But I want to stick with the multiplayer theme, so I'm gonna go with Wave Race. The original. It's only No, I think it was 4-player. I think it had 4-player. I don't remember. But it was a fantastic game. The series has sadly gone missing in action since the GameCube, and I still go back and forth on which one is the better version. But in any case, the 64 version still holds up. It's obviously dated, but still looks really good in this really dated way. Like, you can see the polygons in the water, but it still looks appealing somehow. And it has great track design, has a great feel to it. And of course, again, it has multiplayer, and it would be fun to just revisit that once again. So yes, Wave Race.
I'm surprised you didn't say Cruisin' USA.
I almost did. I mean, to be fully honest, it's not a great game, but I do still love it, and especially with Cruisin' Blast having just come out, it will be fun to revisit. But it was only 2-player for one, I think, as compared to possibly 4-player on Wave Race, and it's more limited in its replay value than Wave Race is.
Yeah.
Had you asked me back in the day, I probably would say Cruisin' was a better game. I think these days I'd say Wave Race is the better game. So,
Joey, you see that? I'm almost surprised earlier when he was saying like, "I'm excited," and he didn't go like, "For Excitebike 64."
No! Crap, you're right. No, I'm taking it back. I'm gonna forget Wave Race. Screw Wave Race. I want Excitebike 64. Thank you, Tom. That game was amazing. God, it had so many modes, such a great feel, fun physics, an amazing update of the NES version, including also the NES version inside it, plus a 3D version in the NES version inside it. Had an early version of Rocket League, which you can play online now on Nintendo Switch Online. It had a hill climb mode. Oh, how could I forget? Dear God, what have I done?
Why?
Yes, sorry, Wave Race. Excitebike 64 is a new hotness, a new old hotness.
Came out of left field.
Because they were the developer. Nice. All right. Oh man, it's quick. I just want a quick shout out to a few other games. Actually, not a shout out. Let's have a few quick mentions for other games we would like to hopefully have come to the service that we may have missed originally, even though we always had the opportunity to because they did release here. For myself, I would love to see, as I mentioned, Battle for Naboo, because I own the game but never really played much of it. Rayman 2. Which I think this 64 version is one of the better versions of the game, though I think they all have their kind of pros and cons. Never played it. I would love to see Rayman 2 on the service. And then also Harvest Moon 64. I actually did play a ton of this game back in the day, but I think a lot of people missed it. So I'm speaking on their behalf, and it's one of the more probably I feel like it's one of the more unique Harvest Moons, not having ever been re-released since. Although Friends of Mineral Town is kind of a weird spin-off of it. So I think that would be needed. That came to the service. But how about, let's start off with Tom this time. How about you, Tom? What did you miss on 64 that you think would be cool to have here?
Okay, I missed out on Body Harvest by DMA Designs. I think that'd be a neat one to see.
The original Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. Of course, we were mentioning Sin and Punishment earlier. I didn't get to play that one ever. And I'd love to see something like maybe an Acclaim game there, like Shadow Man. I never played that. Thinking back to Turok, I was considering that, but it's been remastered. I love their crazy openings of like the iguana dodging a million arrows. Like I think they blew half the game's budget on the intro, really.
Probably.
And
speaking of Shadow Man, real quick, that reminded me of also Shadowgate 64, which I never played, and that'd be awesome to see here.
Yeah, and maybe something like Ogre Battle 64. I heard really good things about that RPG, but I never played it.
Ogre Battle 64 is... I never played it myself. I know that's a cult classic. Apparently it was just a really impressive game on the 64, and that'd be neat to see. I agree. Good choice. Good choices. Joey?
I missed out on the entire Nintendo 64 generation, so I'm not the best person to ask, but
No, you're the best person to ask!
Glover. I don't know. But it's so funny. I was thinking of putting Doom 64 on there, but that also just got remastered.
Yeah.
But now part of me is just like, you know what? Screw it. Put the D-Masters on there. Show them what it was like. Like, give me that Turok with all that fog. Give me one of the worst ports of Quake you've ever seen in your life. Although I heard it was pretty alright, but most of the ports back then were not that great. And also, just Daikatana. Just commit to the bit. Just do it.
I like it. There we go.
Turok, real quick, Turok was great and impressive at the time. Like, it had huge enemies. The first one had a decent frame rate. The second one had crazy weapons like the cerebral boar that would go, and the enemies would actually like run away with their arms in the air as it was latched onto their head and drilled inside. But it was over ambitious for the time because it would just chug like crazy, but it was impressive.
Yeah, which a remake or the re-release helped address.
Yeah.
I remember Turok 2 blowing my mind when you could fire an arrow at an enemy and if you missed, they would like look at the arrow, then look where it came from. I'm like, what? How? That's so cool. Yeah, I want to give just a couple other quick shout outs to 64 is well known for being a 3D platforming game, a genre that's kind of died out. So it'd be awesome to see some of those return. You know, Joey, we just touched on Glover, but there was also Rocket Robot on Wheels, made by the developers of Sly Cooper and of course Infamous. So it'd be neat to see. Yeah, so it'd be awesome to give people the chance to revisit that game. A really just fun platformer back in the day that leaned into puzzles too, even including physics-like puzzles that we wouldn't see again until Half-Life 2. Rocket Robot on Wheels arguably invented physics. I'm throwing it out there. They invented physics in real life too. And the Forsaken 64, another amazing multiplayer game that I almost had on my list. It's fully 3D, like you can fly around in all directions, you can shoot anywhere. It was wild. It'd be fun to have. It'd be great to have here too. So, all right. Any final thoughts, anyone, on anything we discussed here on the potential of N64 coming to Nintendo Switch Online?
I think most of these games you mentioned are not going to be there day one. I think it's mostly going to be the games we already know of, like Zelda, Mario 64. Although Mario 64 is on Mario 3D All Stars, would they dare put it on Switch Online?
I mean, it was a limited time release, right? So they have nothing to gain from that game anymore. So yeah, it will be, I think.
Okay, yeah. So
which is funny. It would technically be the worst version because they did make some upgrades to the 64 one beyond the higher resolution, which I imagine these games would also have. But they updated some textures too. So I wonder if they would re-release that version or would they go with a pure 64 one?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a feeling maybe it's pure 64 one. Who knows? We'll find out. Maybe, maybe not, if this is real.
Tom?
I hope the service really just improves the frame rate for many of the old games. That was something they struggled with. But N64 is like the ultimate first-party platform before there was online. I mean, to have it on Switch Online would make a ton of sense in that regard.
Yeah, 64. I feel like I feel like it often gets a lot of crap for like its library, but like there were a lot of good games on the platform, and not just first-party ones. Like I had trouble narrowing down my list. I could have given you a list of 20 to 30 games I would absolutely love to see on the platform, and we'd be here for a while if that were the case. And I don't think they're all going to hit it, assuming any of them hit it. But I'm excited to revisit this library. It has a great library, and especially if it is running at a higher resolution, possibly better frame rate than the originals. This could be a great way to revisit these games, especially with it possibly bringing back online or bringing back multiplayer for an online with an online component. That'd be a lot of fun. And we're going to do an all-day stream just on that. An all-year stream on 64. All right, everyone. With that, I think that covers our thoughts on Nintendo 64 Online, or Nintendo 64 possibly coming to Nintendo Switch Online, as well as the thoughts of a Switch controller based on it, for 64. You gotta have the classic feel. That's all I'm saying.
You got it. It's awkward otherwise.
It just would be. So thank you for watching. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on the service that ever actually hits, and everything else Nintendo Switch as well. We'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.